Hello, I'm Rudy Garza, Chief Customer and Stakeholder Engagement Officer at CPS Energy. Oprime estrella cero, ahora para escuchar en español. Thank you for joining us this evening for this interactive town hall meeting so we can speak directly with you, our customers, answer your questions, and listen to your comments. We are excited to connect with you tonight to share key updates about our flexible path, the strategy to incorporate newer and cleaner energy technologies while balancing our commitment to you. To help you understand the importance of this conversation and your voice, I'll paint a picture using some math. We are currently what we call long on generation, meaning that we have the ability to make more our community needs. We have the capacity of 7,000 megawatts of generation. On any given warm spring day, our community uses roughly 4,000 megawatts. The conversation we're having tonight, and as we go forward, is about taking 3,000 of the 7,000 megawatts offline and retiring aging energy generating units and perhaps repurposing some. This will help set the stage for tonight's event. Joining me tonight is Paula Gold-Williams, our President and CEO of CPS Energy. Frank Almaraz, CPS Energy's Chief Power, Sustainability, and Business Development Officer. Krista Davis, who serves as Director for Energy Supply and Market Operations Strategy. And finally, Rick Luna, Director of Technology and Product Innovation. For those of you who are joining us on your telephone, you can also watch a video simulcast of this event at cpsenergy.com/town hall or at facebook.com/CPS Energy. If you have a question, you can press *3 on your phone keypad at any time, and you will be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. After that, the next time you hear your name, you will be live on the call and you will be able to ask your question directly. If you're participating on the live stream, you can enter your name and question below the streaming player. If you're joining us on Facebook, simply leave a comment. We're going to work to get to as many questions as we can tonight. And if we aren't able to get to your questions, we will take all the questions and answer them and post them to our website next week. We encourage everyone who has joined to submit your questions. We want to hear from you. Oprima estrella cero ahora para escuchar en español. We have a lot of territory to cover tonight, so let's get started. We're passionate about serving you, our customers. It's been an honor to serve Greater San Antonio for 161 years. Aligned to our 6 guiding pillars, our goal is always to provide your products and services that are safe, secure, affordable, reliable, resilient, and environmentally responsible. Tonight's town hall is an update on our flexible path. Tonight's town hall is an update on our flexible path forward along a constantly changing energy landscape. For 20 years, CPS Energy has prudently embraced the transition from traditional fuel sources to renewable energy. Today, San Antonio is the #1 solar city in the state of Texas. We understand our role in helping our customers through the ongoing transition into the future, while we have steadily reduced our carbon intensity. A major part of the effort to focus on ways to deliver energy includes our Flex Power Bundle, Flex Step, and our Flex EV initiatives. We hosted a teletown hall earlier this year, and much has changed since then, including the value of energy, resiliency, one of our guiding pillars, that before Winter Storm Uri was not that well known and maybe not that well understood. You'll hear more about that tonight, along with how we look at these important key guiding pillars to ensure minimal to no disruption to our customers and our growing city. But before we start that discussion, we want our President and CEO, Paula Gold-Williams, to provide us an update along with a quick overview of our guiding pillars and how we operate through that lens. Paula.
All right, Rudy, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for think I'm getting some background noise, but I'm going to keep trying to go. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Rudy is correct. We did conduct a flexible path town hall earlier in the year before Winter Storm Uri. We also for the first time, we put out a resource plan. And the resource plan is what utilities do on a regular basis, sometimes every year, every other year. And that's how we look at how our assets stack up. How old are they? What does it look like in terms of when do we need to retire them? What are our options? And for the first time, realizing that the community, San Antonio, our citizens, our customers, wanted to know more, we decided to take that information and put it out there for public consumption. That report is posted on our website. It's actually called the Flexible Path Resource Plan. We want to share this information with you. There's a huge amount of thought behind that report, but what we really want to do is invite the community into major decisions that have to be made. We have, as Rudy says, we have about 7,000 megawatts of capacity. And typically, usage, maybe in the summer, maybe around 5,000 megawatts. So we typically have enough. And we have assets that we have 3,100-ish employees at our peak that spend time keeping those assets up, making sure we're generating power, sending that power through lines, and sending the power directly to your homes and businesses. And we take great care of them. Our team is passionate about keeping those assets up. Assets last typically somewhere around 50 years. And especially what we call the traditional units, they can last that long. Well, we have about 3 units coming up right away in this decade that we are going to need to retire, and there are others that are getting older. But we want to be thoughtful about it. We want to be flexible. We want to not just solve the problems of how can we produce power more cleanly and still keep reliability and, as Rudy says, resilience up. We want to be thoughtful. I will tell you that we have done some interesting things. We have put out RFPs, and you'll hear about that a little bit more from the rest of the team. We put out RFPs around the globe. We want people to tell us what are the best solutions that we can utilize, and they need to be proven. They need to be effective. This is the core energy that you need to have lives that don't have to worry about power and energy. So we're being thoughtful. We're taking all that information in. We will be looking for a new way to bundle the resources together so we can make sure that we get clean energy from renewables. We get fast response that'll help us with resiliency. And ultimately, we look for a balance of traditional and hopefully new technologies that will help us make everything a whole lot more reliable and resilient. I will say, Rudy's correct. We have the 6 pillars that he talked about. And those 6 pillars, you'll hear them over and over again, but we want you to tell us what you think about them. And once again, I want to make sure that I get them for you correctly. We have safety, security, affordability, because we know affordability really is important. We haven't had a rate increase in 7 years because we know that it's important for us to try to keep our bills affordable. But we also know that that power has to be reliable. It has to be resilient. We have to be able to restore it quickly so that you can have it when you need it. And even more every day, we have to make sure that we're thinking about the environment. And that's why we are number 1 in solar today. What Uri did, and I will tell you, we still are. We are so sorry for the effect that it has had on the citizens of San Antonio and citizens all across Texas. That was a monumental storm, and it lasted an extremely long time and caused much devastation. But what it also did is it told us that resilience and reliability are something really, really important. They have to be at the forefront of what we do as we try to make sure all the value pillars are kept in balance. So we took, and we are continuing to take, the feedback that we got from the city's review of our performance and the performance of our sister organizations, and we are embracing that and already making changes. But we're also using it to think about how do we make new and better solutions for energy generation in the future. We want to invite you in. We want your input tonight. We want you to help us think about the future. San Antonio is the best community. I am from here, born and raised. And we want to make sure, again, that San Antonio, that all of you have the right solutions in the future. And I want you to know that, again, we have 3,000 wonderful employees who think about this all the time. And we want to make sure that we make the smoothest path forward and be flexible about it along the way. So those are my primary highlights, Rudy. I'm sure there's some more, but I ultimately want to get to the questions as soon as we can.
Well, thank you, Paula, for that insight. Always a wealth of knowledge when it comes to our energy industry. Before we go to our first caller, I want to remind everyone that if you have a question related to billing or customer service, our dedicated energy advisors are on standby to help you at 210-353-2222. Many have also seen and heard that after a year and a half of not having any disconnects for non-payment, that we will resume that billing activity starting in October. Please call our energy advisors today to work out payment arrangements to be placed in a payment program and be connected to community resources to help you. Nobody needs to be disconnected. Please just call us and let us help you. We look forward to helping you. It's also summertime, and you can take small steps to help conserve energy, which means energy savings for you. You can visit our website, cpsenergy.com/tips, with easy ways to save energy and money. Let's go ahead and take our first question. Our first live call is from Carol Fisher. Carol, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for having this. I'd like to know if you will be closing the Spruce coal plant by 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. And I'll just mention that Isabella Briseño had a similar question online. Why are we keeping Spruce open, citing costs as a reason? Paula, I will start with you, and then we'll turn it over to Frank.
Well, that is the question of the decade, and we actually have been working on this for a long time. We are looking for ways to make sure that we look at all the options. But I will say the Spruce coal units, we have definitely made sure that on the Spruce 2 units, we have all of the best available environmental controls on that to reduce the emissions. We understand the importance of getting off of coal. We understand the preference. I will say that if we didn't have that capacity during Storm Uri, and we did have an issue with one plant, but if we had lost both plants, we would have had a whole lot more devastation. So I wanted the importance of this discussion tonight and several others that we're going to schedule in the near future is let's get together and figure out what's the best way to think about how can we get there? How can we potentially close, convert, change, look for different options going forward? We haven't made the decision yet because, again, we've got to make sure that we do have a way to produce power for people in the interim, for everyone. And right now, we need to make sure that we have base load perspectives on that. We have to have the ability to have power all the time. And the summer peak, the dynamics are different. Solar does a lot of great work, and it carries the day for us in a good way, and solar and wind at many times during the summer. But we can't rely on it in the winter. It's not meant to do that. We need to make sure that we're continuing to find solutions to make sure that we can be covered for all the times of the year. So the answer is we're looking for those. We want your input, but we also want you to know it's going to be a tough discussion because we got to figure out the right way to do that. And the timing is really critical.
Frank, I'll turn it over to you. You want to add any comments?
Yeah, I will. I appreciate it. And Paula, I think you hit the nail on the head. We, as I think you and Rudy both cited, have about 5,000 megawatts of peak requirement for our customers' demand during the summertime. During Winter Storm Uri, it was more than that, or it would have been. And I think Rudy cited the statistic that we have 7,000 megawatts of generation. Well, I mean, that seems like a lot, and it is if we're able to run all that we have and make it available for our community when it's needed. There are about 1,700 megawatts of gas steam units that are going to be retiring just because it's time to retire them. They're getting older, 1960s vintage technology. That will all happen in about over the next 10 years. Flex Power Bundle is aimed at replacing some of that capacity, but it's not all of it. And that doesn't count the additional 1,300 megawatts that would come off of our portfolio if we were to retire spruce. So when you add that up, that's about 3,000 megawatts from the 7 that we have now, which would leave us well short of our need to supply power to our community. We're going to grow this community by about 1 million people between now and 2040. And the flexible path puts us on a pathway to carbon neutrality by 2050. Flexible path offers us the opportunity to bring resources to supply all that growth, this robust and growing community, and do it in a way that's really responsible and meets all of the guiding pillars that you cited a little bit ago, Paula. And that's really the defining characteristic, is that we're able to look at it, make decisions as technology becomes cheaper and more efficient, and we can do it all in balance. And one of the reasons why we're here today, and a reason why I appreciate the question so much, is that it's important to have a community-wide dialogue on this topic. The Flexible Path Resource Plan that Paula mentioned that's on the website is pretty comprehensive. It's the most comprehensive we've ever been with releases of information to our customers, to the community. And we hope everyone will read it. We hope everyone would take some time to understand what's in it and, share their opinions and their perspectives on trade-offs that we have to make, all decisions that we have to make, including, even just sort of staying the course with our business as usual, whatever that really means in a world where change is happening so fast. All of it has cost. We haven't made any decisions yet, but you'll find in the document like a tentative sort of scenario where we would retire Spruce 1 by about 2028. And there are some options presented also in that document to talk about options for Spruce 2. Those options include running it as it is, converting it to natural gas. It's probably $135 million or $150 million investment, or to retire it outright. As I said, all of those options are things that we want to have a dialogue with the community about. And in the end, it's something that we'll have a very public discussion with our board about. I don't want anyone to mistake what you find in that document as decisions made, because this is something that we have a ways to go on, and we're certainly going to involve our board in that conversation. And I think what I'll just finally say is that after Uri, we just have even put a new refocused lens on reliability and resiliency, words that don't always enter into the consciousness of most of our community. And we're glad that it's that way. We have a history and such a legacy of being reliable and resilient that we hope people don't have to think about it very much. But Winter Storm Uri proved that it's something that we all have to think about. And when you imagine that it's not just a summer peak, which everybody feels so connected to, everyone knows how hot it can get here. It's also the winter peak that we have to be concerned with. And as Paula mentioned, solar, which produces so much useful energy during the summer, the heat of the summer day, is producing at something less than 1% during the peaks of the winter that happen in the morning and in the evening when it's dark outside. And it's really all of that has caused us to be really careful about how we've constructed our flexible path, our flex power bundle, which you'll hear more about from Krista Davis a little bit later. And I will just close my answer to this question by noting that by the end of the week, we're going to have another document. It's kind of an addendum to the Flexible Path Resource Plan, and it will describe some additional thinking that we've put into place and some thoughts on different mitigating activities that we might be able to take coming out of Winter Storm Uri related to flexible path. What are the different considerations that we have, and what are the things that we're thinking about and we're analyzing today? So thank you for the question.
Hey, Rudy and Frank, I'm going to jump in one more time because I know that this is the question. And I just wanted to add just a little bit of context. So Frank highlighted, we look at keeping the plant open as a base case scenario because it's currently functioning. But there are other scenarios. Another, as he said, is to potentially convert it to a less emitting transitional technology, which would be natural gas. Before Storm Uri, I would say I actually thought that the natural gas option was a pretty strong candidate. I will say we had a ton of issues on the supply of natural gas, which has led to why we are litigating against natural gas suppliers in particular. We're actually litigating against ERCOT because we believe that the industry on the natural gas supply side, certain companies did not operate in good faith, and they acted against public policy by raising those prices. And so I think that that is something that we're going to continue to look at on whether or not that option of repowering works if there are no structural changes in the market. But it is something as an alternative and less emitting to coal. The other option he said was to shut it down, but I want to add something to that. It has to be replaced. You can't just shut it down, because then we would not have, as he described, between the older gas units that have to come online. It's like a car that you eventually have, it's kaput. You got to get rid of it. We have about 3 units there. And then if you got rid of the coal units at the same time, you have to replace that capacity. So the option isn't just close it, it's close and replace. And that's why the big RFP has been so important that you're going to hear about what's really out there, what really works. Hydrogen, for example, doesn't really work yet. And so there are other technologies that we're very open to. Batteries are great, but you can't recharge batteries in the middle of the winter storm. That's exactly what happened to us. You can't recharge them from the grid. If we produce 1 unit of power, it's not going to go to charge a unit, it's going to go to a home. And so you don't get the benefit of batteries. So those are the things and the kinds of discussions that we want to have with you. So we can, again, kind of think about big picture, what our choices are and how to narrow them and how to evaluate them, and then figure out what the cost is going to be for all of those things. And the cost gets borne by the community because we don't get access to federal funds to build our power plants. We're going to try to get some from the DOE, but in reality, we don't have those kind of funds. So we're just managing the resources for you. These are your assets. We have to make sure that everything is in balance, that the plants work, that the costs are controlled. So every time we add a resource, that becomes an impetus for higher costs.
Very good. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Frank. For those of you just joining us, this is an interactive forum and we want to hear your questions. If you have one, press *3 on your keypad at any time to get in the queue to ask a question. A member of our staff will collect your questions and we will answer as many as we can during this live event. Again, press *3 on your keypad at any time to get in the queue to ask a question. If you're participating online, you can submit your question below the streaming player. We also have with us tonight, as you've just heard from, Frank Almaraz, our Chief Power, Sustainability, and Business Development Officer, and Krista Davis, Director of Energy Supply and Market Operations Strategy. Frank, earlier I talked about the 3,000 megawatts we're potentially looking to take offline over the next decade. A good portion of that is because we have gas units that are old and it's just time. But nearly half is power that's generated by relatively young coal units. Talk to us about the Flexible Path Resource Plan a little bit more and what we're asking our customers to think about and give us their feedback on. And also talk to us about how we're thinking about this resource plan differently post-Winter Storm Uri.
Yeah, thanks, Rudy. Ultimately, as I said, every choice that we make has a cost associated with it. And there are things that are really good about it, and there are things that have cost or have additional risk. And as we think about the priorities of the challenges that are going to come to us sooner, I think first and foremost about those gas retirements that are going to have to happen. Paula mentioned hydrogen. There's some potential that hydrogen plays an expanding role in the future. I think there's cost reductions that will have to happen to make that a big part of our portfolio that we can rely on in place of something like coal. But there are no simple answers in this complex landscape that we operate and find ourselves in. So we are deeply interested in putting all of the information that we can out in the hands of the community, as we have with our Flexible Path Resource Plan, and getting that feedback about how we view the cost and benefits of making different choices. In the document, you'll find some preliminary sort of scenarios that will tell you, hey, this is what it costs if we were to add more to our STEP program. Hey, this is what it costs if we were to think about retiring both of our coal units in just the next couple of years, because we think it's really critical that you have that sort of information in order to make that comparison. What's right for my family? How do I view the cost that will come to me versus the benefits that I get from taking certain actions? So that's kind of that. And just again, in respect to the winter storm, there are other things that we have been talking about recently about how we need to spend our money. Our plants during this winter storm performed as well or better as most fleets in the state. Our plants are generating at about 85% of the capacity that's available to us, and really just a small fraction of that was associated with the winter weather, which was unprecedented. It was 100 hours below freezing. Even still, because of the $20 million of investments that we made since 2011, we had pretty good performance out of our plants, and we're able to bring that capacity to serve our community. When we think about the things that are on our minds post Winter Storm Uri, we're thinking about the retirement of gas capacity. We're thinking about how we were charged illegal and unconscionable prices in the gas market, costs that we are currently fighting against in order to avoid them hitting our customers' pocketbooks. We think about the fact that there was some lack of reliability on the gas system. We balance that against the need to be, continue along our pathway to reduced emissions. We've reduced our emissions, for example, 81% of NOx since 1997, and 97% of our SO2s, sulfur dioxide, since 1997, and 15% CO2 reduction just over the last 4 years alone. So how do we continue down that pathway and meeting all of our pillars and balance the risks that we've really put a laser focus on since the winter storm, while continuing down that flexible path, evaluating these really cool technologies that we've seen that might serve as that next firming capacity that would replace the need to rely on fossil fuels over the long run. We've got to begin investing in those things now in order to make sure that we know how to use them, how do we operate them safely, how do we operate our grid for the benefit of our community, balancing the 6 pillars and incorporating that new technology. We've got to make sure that we operate everything we've got right now as best as we can, as reliably as we can, in order to make that transition of the future and do it responsibly.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, everyone, we want to hear from you. We're going to ask a quick poll question. If you're on the phone, you can vote by pressing the corresponding number on your keypad. If you're online and watching from our website, you can vote by selecting your response below the streaming player. And if you're on Facebook, please comment with your response. Here's our first poll question. Again, we have worked diligently to make San Antonio the #1 solar city in Texas. We are also excited that our new Flex Power Bundle will triple our company's total solar capacity. The bundle also includes additional resources that will enhance solar with a solid combination of battery storage and consistently performing firming power. With 4 options to choose from, please tell us what is the most important consideration to you. And we know they're all important, but which one is the most important from your perspective? Press 1 to keep bills affordable. Press 2 to keep your power reliable and resilient, which means getting it to you when you need it. Press 3 to prioritize environmental responsibility above all things, everything else. Or press 4 to ensure we're giving you new products and services that you're asking for. Again, press 1 for affordability. Press 2 for reliability and resiliency. Press 3 for environmental responsibility. Press 4 for new products and services. Okay. All right, Krista, you've been on the renewable energy journey from nearly day one, and it's truly an exciting chapter in our history. We're in the process of bringing the Flex Power Bundle online. Where are we? Excuse me, Krista. Where are we in the
Sure.
process of bringing the Flex Power Bundle online?
Sure. Thank you, Rudy. Great question. And many have said already we have some aging generation. We are number one already in Texas for solar, but we have a responsibility. As Paula mentioned, we are managing these assets. I believe Frank and Rudy both mentioned we have some resources that are going to be coming offline in the next decade. A couple of those power plants, we have some gas-fired power plants, and about half of the 1,700 megawatts that Frank mentioned is going to be coming offline in the next 5 years. And so, Rudy, you're right. We have this combination of resources that we released an RFP for, a request for proposals, and we're looking at getting a combination of solar, storage, and some firming capacity that can ultimately replace those aging gas plants that are more than 50 years old. And so what we did is we did an all-source request for proposal last year, and we sent it out, got a huge response from around the globe. More than 650 proposals came in, and the team has been working diligently on this in evaluation phase. But as Paula mentioned, our guiding pillars are really taking us through this process. And since Winter Storm Uri, we have doubled down on the fact that firming power is going to be really, really important to this bundle, because we need to have that reliable and resilient power when the sun is not shining and we have those intermittent resources. And so we're evaluating all of those now. We've got a lot of great technologies as part of this, a lot of different alternative storage technologies, lots of solar here in Texas that is in the pipeline being developed as we speak. So we're excited about all of that. We're looking also for storage, the firming technologies. We're, as I mentioned, in the evaluation phase. We're really using our guiding pillars, looking at how can we keep things affordable, resilient, reliable for our community. We're looking at potentially awarding some solar here in the fall. And then we're looking at awarding the rest of the contracts in the wintertime this year. The other thing that I just want to say is, for the firming capacity, a lot of people don't understand what that means. And so with solar being an intermittent resource, which means it's only going to be working during the daylight hours, that firming capacity is going to be able to shore up that power as people are coming home in the evening, getting ready to cook their meals, turning on the dishwasher. So we're going to need that firming capacity. And so for that reliability and that resiliency, we're really taking our time and evaluating what those technologies need to be so that we can keep the power affordable and reliable for our community.
Thank you, Krista. We know there are exciting updates to come about the Flex Power Bundle, and we will continue to share information about its progress with our community as we move forward. We have the results from our first poll question. When we talk about adding renewable generation and innovative power resources, we asked you what the most important consideration is for your household or business. The results are, for number one, keep bills affordable, we had 33% of our respondents pick that option. Number two, keep your power reliable and resilient. We had 42% of our respondents pick that option. Option number three, prioritize environmental responsibility above everything else. We had 16% choose that option, and ensure we provide new products and services. We had 9% choose that options. So with that feedback, Paula, what are your thoughts about what we're hearing from our listeners today?
I will say before the storm, the highest ranked items were affordability and reliability. And so I'm not surprised that the two highest numbers are going to the reliability factors and the affordability. We have had situations where the reliability and the performance of how we do has been higher, like it's shown tonight, and we've had instances where affordability was the highest priority. But it's interesting that they're typically 1 and 2. I do think that clearly Storm Uri was unprecedented, and it was 10 times more intense in some dimensions for how long it took. the last time we had that type of outage management, people were out and the system was affected about 7 hours. This was 70 hours of impact. So I do really see how we as citizens and all of our customers really have thought really how difficult it is to not have reliable power caused by this winter storm formation, but it lasted a really, really long time from that perspective. So I think it makes a lot of sense after we've endured as a community. And again, we as CPS Energy, all our employees are very sorry. A lot of our employees had the same experiences in terms of not having power, but we actually know that our obligation and our commitment is to serve you. So we are looking at all the things that we can start to do ourselves, all the things that we can continue to work on systemically. And so from that perspective, we're going to keep focusing on the reliability and the resilience of our system while keeping it affordable. Now, I will say the other two items, and by far, environmental responsibility still has to be at the forefront. So 16%, I think is what you said. It's still important, and I think it's going to be increasingly important every day. We've got to do this change. We've got to do this evolution. We have to be flexible to find new resources, thinking about the environment the whole way. I will just end with, please know that all of the team members here at CPS Energy are thinking about how to keep it all in balance, how to give you the best options and give you the best of all of those value pillars. But we listen and we appreciate you telling us what's important to you.
Thank you, Paula. And I want to thank the audience. We're getting just a flood of questions in, and we look forward to getting to as many of them tonight. And again, posting them online after the event next week so that we can get to every one of them. Again, I want to remind you, you can press *3 on your keypad at any time to get in the queue to ask a question. If you're participating online, you just submit your questions below the streaming player. And of course, if you're on Facebook, just post them in the comments. We're now going to take a question that came in through Facebook from one of our key community environmental stakeholders, Greg Harmon. And Greg, thank you for being with us tonight. We appreciate your passion for your stakeholder group and the work you do for the community. Your voice is important, and we appreciate you. How are we going to meet? Paula, this question is for you, and then Frank, I'll ask you to comment as well. How are we going to meet our climate commitment for 2030 under the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan that both the CPS Energy Board and the City of San Antonio agreed to? And Paula, I saw you there standing shoulder to shoulder with the mayor when he signed the Paris Climate Accord. So I know you've been involved in this conversation from the get-go. So Paula, what do you have to say about that?
Well, thank you. And thanks, Greg. I think you and I have had this conversation over the years. Look, I think, again, we really care about working this out with the community and having that open dialogue about how to do this. Now, I will say that the Paris Accord in itself was a goal of 2050. We knew that we needed to be able to meet that. And that's tremendous, to try to get to net zero emissions by 2050. But we understand ever since that goal had been set globally, there's still been this process and thought about maybe that's not enough. That probably isn't enough. We could see immediately around the 2017 timeframe that we needed to make meaningful changes. And again, I want to remind everybody, we did close 2 coal units. We have been in wind power for over 20 years. We are #1 in solar today. We have an award-winning, one of the biggest and best energy efficiency and conservation programs in the nation. And thank you very much, Greg, because I know you've also been working to try to help us enhance that. So we're making a lot of improvements. And we could see that we could make substantial changes by 2040. But then the dialogue changed again. And so the comment is really, what can we do to get to 2030? We understand that is a evolving objective, but it really is essential. And more people are talking about how to get there. We also understand that it's not easy. We do hear that the President of the United States is really interested in getting to those goals. And we think that's critical, because the ability for the federal government to help communities like San Antonio find the right funds to help us get there faster, we think is extremely important along the way. I do want to also assure you that that San Antonio, we understand that we've got to do it for our community, what works for us. But we have cast a wide net across the globe looking for new solutions. And we have partnerships with other entities. In fact, one of them, EPRI, the Electric Power Resource Institute, has created a consortium that is global. So we're putting some resources there with a lot of other utilities so we can find how can we go faster, 2 times faster, 3 times faster. And we're ramping up that work. Now, look, I think the point I'm going to say is we got to find real solutions. The objectives are clear. We understand that they keep increasing because of the needs on the environment, but we've got to be really clear to find really great solutions along the way. And I still say we still want to have a conversation to tell you all the things that we want to do, all the things we're looking at, get your input, and continue to make those improvements every, one step at a time. Try to do them faster, but one step at a time.
Thank you, Paula. Frank, I'm going to pivot a little bit. Paula covered that question pretty well. There's a separate question I want to kick over to you from Facebook from Miss Janie Root. How much preparation has been done to winterize our power plants over these next few months in advance of next year's winter season?
Yeah, thanks, Rudy. After 2011, this was the last storm I think Paula mentioned. It was as compared to what happened recently, this recent storm had a impact that was 5 times greater than that storm. But after that storm, CPS Energy commissioned 3 separate assessments, and we looked at different aspects of our power generation operations. They were nationally recognized engineering firms that came and made these assessments, and they had recommendations for us. We addressed each and every one of those recommendations, and we spent, I think the number is $18.5 million to date, and another $2 million or $2.5 million yet to spend that for this year. The dollars that we've spent so far were on all of our power generation plants themselves, and then there was another, as I said, a couple $1 million that will be spent this year on time and on schedule for our coal yard, which incidentally did not experience any weather or freeze impacts because of Uri. We have, invested significant dollars, as I said. We've also said that we had some failures on parts of power plants that shouldn't freeze. A 6-inch water line that has water moving through it does not freeze in South Texas, or has never before. These are plants that were built a long time ago and have never experienced anything close to a freeze on some of these parts of our plants. But we've identified those. We, in fact, identified them during the storm. We began to see freezing. So we thawed them with portable heaters. We insulated them on a temporary basis and have since come back through and worked to what they call heat trace. And that's, you wrap a wire around it that has electricity going through it that heats the wire. It's like a small heater just kind of wrapped around the wire. And then you wrap insulation around that. And that's how you insulate some of these pieces of our power plants. We've also looked at our temporary enclosure plans. Here in the South, most of the time we want to keep airflow moving through the plants, because we have our employees working there all the time, 7/24 every day of the year, including during the summer when it's really hot, especially during the summer when it's really hot. And if we enclosed everything, for instance, we would cause equipment to malfunction. We would cause people to become ill with heat injury. And obviously we don't want to do that. So it's more complex than simply putting enclosures around things. And we've been giving a lot of thought to how we deploy temporary enclosures when it's time to do that, and how we create some permanent enclosures around areas that we can do that for. As I said, we've also looked at places that we experienced freezing or close to freezing during this unprecedented weather event, and we've added insulation to those areas. We have also are in the process of buying additional portable heaters. We are dropping additional electrical outlets within the plant itself so that we can add those additional space heaters, and we're looking thoroughly at our full heat trace program that I just described a little bit ago. There's we're spending those dollars today, and we're developing additional plans to be resilient from a staffing standpoint to make sure that we are fully ready to go. I will say, Rudy, after Winter Storm Uri, there has been discussion, and there was a Senate bill that talks about weatherization at power plants across the state. CPS Energy has always been pretty conservative and spent the dollars needed to make sure that our plants are well protected. Not everyone has done that, and this legislation is going to set some standards, but we don't know what those standards are yet. So we are, again, doing all the things that I mentioned, but also doing some studies that will prepare us for when those standards are released, that we can take immediate action to make sure that whatever that standard is, that we meet it in a timely fashion. So I want to assure our customers that are listening and all of our stakeholders that we are taking swift action. We took action during the storm. We have taken action since, and we are preparing ourselves to best implement the mitigation activities that we're going to have to put in place once we know those final standards from the state.
Frank, great job. Frank's one of our most talented leaders, and I really appreciate the insight. So Rick Luna is our Director of Technology and Product Innovation and is here to talk about our energy conservation programs and FlexStep, which is the next generation of our energy efficiency and conservation program, our award-winning energy efficiency and conservation program. Before I bring Rick on, though, I want you to think about something. How many companies do you do business with who actually ask you to use less of their product and will even pay you to do it? That's what we do through energy efficiency and conservation programs. They're important. We describe them as our fifth fuel in our portfolio, and we are repeatedly recognized for these conservation programs. We get the recognition for setting up these programs, but it's you, our customers, who truly deserve the honor because you're using them, and because of you have saved our community the power equivalent of a large power plant over the last 10 years. Thank you for joining us on our journey in creating a more energy efficient San Antonio. Rick, give us an update on FlexStep and why it's important for our community, and remind our listeners and viewers where they can get more information about energy conservation programs in San Antonio.
All right. Well, thank you, Rudy. Happy to talk about our energy efficiency and conservation side. We've been talking a lot tonight about the generation supply. Of course, the other part of the equation is our demand for generation, and that's on the part of customers. And so back in 2009, we embarked on our STEP program, which, as Rudy, as you mentioned, was aimed at reducing that demand for power in the community, equivalent to a large power plant. So we've used a lot of big numbers today. I'll use one more, 900 megawatts. That's how much we've saved now as a community. Thank you to our residential customers, our business customers, governmental customers who have participated in programs, who have added solar to their building and or to their home. They've connected a thermostat, other measures that have really helped make a big difference. So in the spirit of the flexible path, we've been thinking and talking to the community for the last 2 years about what does the future of these programs look like. We think there's still great value. We talked about affordability earlier. Obviously, it's one of the top priorities for our customers, and helping customers manage their bill, reduce their energy use is still a critical need in the community. And so we want to continue these programs, but also do this in a way that's creative and innovative and adapts to new technology. And so we issued an RFP earlier this year to bring the best ideas, again, from across the globe, to help us build on the success that we've had, but to bring in some new technologies, things like electric vehicles, battery storage. Now we're talking about at the customer level. So these are ways to help customers embrace that technology. And so we're putting together, we're evaluating the proposals. We'll be bringing a recommendation to our board later this year for the future long-term commitment that we're calling Flex Step. Now that said, our programs continue today. And so if you're looking for making improvements in your home, if you're looking, again, to connect the thermostat, maybe you're thinking about solar, go to our website, cpsenergy.com/save now. You'll see the full list of all the different programs that we offer you. There's over 20 of them. Or give us a call at 353-2SAVE, S-A-V. And we're happy to talk to you, happy to answer any questions. We want to be your energy experts. We want to help you make these investments and want you to, at the end of the day, to be feel like you have options for how to reduce your energy use. So I'll stop there. Thanks again, Rudy, and happy to be able to talk to you tonight about our customer programs.
Great job, Rick. And we're looking forward to bringing some innovative conservation programs to our customers in the coming year. So we're now going to take another live call from one of our guests. So we have a caller, Mr. Michael Sedorik. Michael?
Hello. First, want to thank you all for the excellent performance this evening. I have a lot of faith in what CPS is doing in the future. One thing I wanted you all to consider, irregardless of when and how Spruce shuts down, is Storm Uri may have provided us an opportunity as you look at replacing that technology with another form of generation or acquisition of energy. Would it be possible to expand, scale up the capacity of that generating source so that the excess capacity could be sold on the open market, very much like what ERCOT is doing to help underwrite the cost?
Thank you, Michael, for that question. Frank, why don't you talk a little bit about how we optimize our portfolio to both serve San Antonio and help provide reliability for the state of Texas?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Rudy, thanks for tossing it over to me. We are part of ERCOT. I think everyone has become familiar with this as a result of Winter Storm Uri. CPS Energy is here to serve our community. We own and operate our assets to make sure that we have the power that we need, that our customers need to run your businesses, to live your lives, to live, work, and play in this community. In order to make sure that we have enough power for those times, there are times during the year when you have extra power because energy consumption is pretty peaky. So we make sure that we plan to have not just right at the amount of power that we need, but extra in the event that we have hotter or colder weather than expected, or we have the sorts of plant outages that happen from time to time on these big complex machines. So that is basically our planning principle, is that we're going to have a little bit more than our community needs to make sure that we protect the community from the high prices that you might find if we had to go to ERCOT and buy prices by power when demand is highest. So that said, there's times during the year when our community doesn't quite need as much power. And here's an example. It might be that it is really hot across the state, but it's raining in San Antonio, and that kind of thing is not unusual this time of year. Well, in that case, prices might be very high in the rest of the state, and we might have a good bit more capacity than we need here. And we will sell that excess capacity to create some dollars that will offset some of the costs that we have to pass along to our customers. And when that happens, we take those dollars and we put them through our fuel adjustment. Sometimes it might be tempting to think that number goes up only. Of course, that's not true. It goes down a lot too, because when we're able to sell power into the market that we didn't need right at that time, we're able to put those dollars to reduce our customers' bills directly. So as we look forward, the elegance of the flexible path is that we aren't going to pick technology winners and losers. We're not going to make premature decisions. We're going to adopt technology at the rate that makes sense because of cost and efficiency improvements, but we're still always planning to have extra energy to make sure that our customers' needs are met at the peaks. And that will usually result in having some extra power to sell into the market that helps reduce our customers' bills in the meantime. I appreciate that insight.
Hey Frank, I want to jump in. Just Michael, as our customer, I think that is a great question. I want to say that just in summary, you're right. I mean, that's one way to offset the cost that this community has by being able to sell that excess power. Right now, as we talked before, we have 7,000 megawatts. We peak around 5 ish. The winter was stronger than we had ever seen any summer, by the way. And on average, it's much lower than that, as Frank described. When we replace these units, you're right, we do need to have a conversation about the value that the community has for us continuing to be long, to have that excess power. To have it, we're able to make money, and we're also able to back our own needs up. So if a plant goes down because it needs an unexpected repair, like a car might need an unexpected repair, we have the ability to self-serve and not to have to go to the market and be exposed to price spikes then. But that's a conscious decision. A lot of utilities don't do that. We by far, we provide about 7% of the capacity of the market, but we provide about 15% of the excess capacity, 12 to 15%. So it not only have we helped San Antonio, but we've helped Texas. But that also is a costly, decision to pay for that, to make sure that San Antonio is covered, and that we try to make sure that we have the assets available. We're making an extra investment as a community. So we'll have some more conversations around that. Michael, you're exactly right. It's a key point. It's something that we've utilized for years to help us, but it is something that we have to be conscious about because it will cost them more money to continue to be long in generation.
Thank you, Paula, for that for that answer. I think we've got time to squeeze in one last caller before the end of our program. So we're going to go to Mr. James Moore. Mr. Moore, are you with us?
Hello. So I think you've answered some of my questions earlier, so I'll just summarize. Do the pillars that you guys described also cover redundancy? I was thinking about the difficulty that was had earlier in the year in reviving the plants for the winter emergency, and thought that you should test them periodically to make sure that they're still winterized properly and able to be revived. But I was thinking about some other power supply sources that you guys could potentially look into. I don't know what the proposals are that you've got, but zinc oxide batteries are 100% recyclable. Kinetic storage flywheels are a good idea. I had an idea right now. You could swap out the solar panels that you have during the winter with amorphous crystalline panels. They produce power even in low light instead of direct light. And my biggest idea I like right now is to litigate the government to get exemption from the shielding requirements for pebble bed and nuclear reactor construction costs. I think it would be the best because there's no possibility of anything going hypercritical because the pebbles, they just get cold and then you recycle them. I'd also like to have somebody comment on how the board, I think, had been replaced because all of them governing the power were not residents of Texas, and they had no stake in the consequences of their actions. So those are the things I wanted to have comments and responses, if possible.
Paula, we're getting to the end of our time. So why don't I turn it over to you to try to touch? I think Mr. Moore was talking about the ERCOT board there at the very end. But why don't you try to quickly touch on those answers and then wrap it up for us tonight?
Okay, I'll try to do my best. Thank you so much. You raise a great issue. There are other technologies out there, and we saw quite a few of them come through, and several that you mentioned. But I will say that that redundancy component is very, very analogous. It's comparable to how we think about being long. We do think it's important to have redundancy, to be able to back ourselves up and to be able to look at the new technologies that they come in. So as Chris has stated, we are evaluating many, many proposals and different types of technology. And some of those, I think you'll see some discussions that we'll have publicly more and more about what those technologies are. And in the interest of time, the ERCOT board, that is the ERCOT board. Our board is based out of San Antonio. You must be a resident of in Bexar County, and we break that up into 4 quadrants. And by the way, one of our longest serving board members, Mr. Ed Kelly, who has served, he actually served a little bit longer because he took on a prior person's term that didn't get completed. But his term ends in January. And if anyone is interested in serving, he's heading up the search process. You can go out there and go to our website and click on boards and look at that application. We're looking at the northwest part of town. You need to come from that quadrant, but you can test that as well. So for us, we do think it's important to be a resident of Texas, a resident of our community, and we make that happen. Yes, we did see the headlines about how the ERCOT board was comprised. I will say it previously was best practice to try to bring in different thoughts and ideas, but I do think that Storm Uri challenged that, like how if they're not really going to be that affected by how the power is delivered, was it right to have that composition? Now, again, I want to assure all customers here in San Antonio that we, in fact, have our board members come from this community and they reside in this community. And that will continue to be the absolute way that we move forward. And again, if you're interested, check out our website. I will close this out. Look, I mean, we can, people have said, golly, how long can you talk about power? Well, we actually do it all the time. Our people, we're pushing out power and we're working on services 24/7, 365, so that whenever you need it, in the middle of the night, on the weekend, holidays, you have all the power that you need. We do appreciate you giving us this one critical hour of time to really keep going with this conversation. And we are going to look at all the questions that you have and we're going to answer them. And we're going to continue to look at those options and take your input and the suggestions. We go back and look at the replay. So thanks again for participating. Please continue to send your thoughts and ideas and suggestions. And again, we will do our best to keep it all in balance and give you optimal results. We're going to be flexible. We're going to be open, and we're going to look at new ways to make sure that we're providing the power that is reliable, resilient, affordable, secure, safe, and environmentally responsible. Thank you so much. And I want to also thank our sign language professional here. I appreciate how you could have ever kept up with all of our conversations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And please know that our energy advisors are waiting to call for your call, and they want to help you. We don't want anybody disconnected. We want to make sure everyone is helped. You will hear from us more soon. Thanks again. We'll be there for you.